How do you like your C10s cooked? You like medium rare, or you like going all the way to medium? You ever done something so stupid it makes you question how you survived on this planet this long? For me, it was a couple days ago when I tried to barbecue my daily driver. Welcome back to Blue Collar Speed and Repair and a little episode of what not to do. The other day I was working on this thing. I've been fighting a thermostat issue. Long story short, it's been giving me trouble. Little backstory, the fuel pump is on the passenger side of the engine. The inlet to my carburetor is on the driver's side. The fuel line goes across the top of the thermostat. Every other time I've messed with this thermostat, I haven't touched the fuel line. This time, for whatever reason, I took the fuel line off, set it off to the side, and forgot to hook it back up before I fired the engine. Stupid mistake. I mean, we've all made mistakes, but man, that was a bad one. Luckily, huge shout out to my coworkers. This happened at work. It was a slow day. Brought the truck in, was tinkering with it. Anyway, huge shout out to them. Let me break this down for you. I jumped in it, hit the key, looked down at the temp gauge, heard a poof, looked up, saw fire, shut the key off. By the time I got from the driver's seat around to the front of the pickup, there were not one, but 2 fire extinguishers ready to go. Huge shout out to them for being on the spot and quick reaction time. Things could have gone a lot worse. So after the event, we'll call it, I wouldn't say I was in shock, but I was flabbergasted at my stupidity, right? I hooked the fuel line back up, kind of glanced around and went, everything looks like it's there, and jumped in it and it runs. No issues, no misfires, everything seemed to be working. And honestly drove it home later that day and drove it back and forth to work the day after with 0 issues. But I did notice like the insulation on, not the insulation, but the wire looming on some of the wires were melted off. So I want to take a quick look at our wires, make sure there's no damage to any insulation, see if we need to repair anything, that kind of stuff. Just kind of look it over, make sure it's not going to have any issues. I'm still kind of kicking myself, you know what I mean? It's a pretty dumb mistake. It is a mistake. We've all kind of done things like this. This is a bad one. I realize that. But it does happen. So let me get the hood open. We'll look around at some things and see what needs to be fixed. So essentially what happened, you can see the fuel line comes up this side, crosses over the thermostat housing, plugs in here. For whatever reason this time, took the fuel line off and kind of set it, I don't remember, either here or here, and again forgot to reconnect it. So I think what happened was it sprayed against the firewall, dropped down to the floor, and my best guess is on its way by to the floor, it probably hit the hot wire from the battery to the starter, and that's probably what set it off. And again, luckily enough, it was put out very quickly. The entire thing lasted 15 seconds, maybe a little more than that, but it could have been a lot worse. I use this kind of plastic braided loom. I don't like the corrugated stuff. So some of that is melted. I don't think any wires here are damaged other than this choke wire. You can see the insulation's melted off of it, but I did have a little extra loop there. So I can easily cut that off, put a new end on it. No big deal there. Light. I do have this loom here that goes down to the starter. It melted the insulation on that as well, or the loom, I should say. So again, no big deal. We can kind of reloom that. I do Want to put this up in the air. I have not had it up in the air yet since all this happened. We'll inspect those wires a little closer. All the fires seem to be contained to this side. I don't see any damage on this side at all. Insulation, or I believe that was all just factory wrapped with tape. That's all melted off. I'll have to rewrap that. The only other wire that was affected is this one that goes to our little under hood light. I'm not overly concerned with that. I might just disconnect it completely. That light's useless. Not a big deal if that doesn't work. So let me kick the rack legs up underneath this thing real quick. We'll put it up in the air and take a look around. Just make sure there's no damage underneath that needs to be taken care of. And what do we got? Bunch of black soot. I wonder why. More concerned about our starter wiring than anything else, which that all appears to be okay, other than it's got some, obviously some plastic stuck to it, some melted plastic. The insulation itself appears to be okay. Again, this thing's starting and running and everything's working, all the gauges and everything. All in all, I think we're actually okay. Again, the fire was basically contained to this side, or well, not contained, but primarily on this side. That's a little bit crispy. That's just the backup light switch. I guess we can check that to make sure the backup lights still work. So yeah, all in all, it could have been a whole heck of a lot worse. I'm counting myself lucky and probably go buy a lottery ticket. It didn't burn to the dang ground, which is the most important part. Again, huge shout out to the quick reaction to friends of mine. I think I'm just going to do this stuff off camera real quick. There's no point in watching me do loom and put one little spade connector on. I'm just going to knock it out real quick. And then we'll get into what started this whole mess and what's going on with the thermostat. Just like that, it's like it never happened. Replaced a little bit of loom here, a little bit of loom there, re-loomed across the top. The only real casualty was the choke wire, which there was enough there to re-put a fitting on it, no big deal. And the wire going to the under hood light, which ultimately I just cut out. I'm not too concerned with that. So, all in all, we got very, very, very lucky. It could have been way, way worse. It could have been a lot more damage. Fortunately, it was not a lot other than the big kick to my pride, but I'll get over it. As far as thermostat goes, which started this whole mess, when we rebuilt this engine, put a new thermostat in it, of course, 195 degree, and I don't remember if it was a Stant or a Summit brand. But operating temperature of this engine has always been between 150 and 160 degrees. It does not get up to the 195. I've been messing with it. Ultimately, I realized later that initial drive, like in the morning going to work, temp gauge would get up to 200, 205. Thermostat would open. It would drop down to 150. And then stay in that 150 to 160 range. So I think what was happening ultimately is thermostat was opening and then not closing all the way until another cold cycle. So I did some research. This is the kind of a standard thermostat like everybody's seen. This is the one that was in it. I ended up going with, this is a Robert Shaw high flow. People said, put one of these in it, no bypass, won't have any problems. Put this in there, and it got up to 160 degrees and then stayed there. Never got up to full operating temperature like the other one did, at least the first initial time. And then it stayed between 150 and 160 degrees all the time. So I started thinking about it and messing with it, and what I learned was if you pinch off the upper radiator hose, the temp gauge would start rising. And then you unpinch it and it would cool back down. So, which led me to believe that either coolant was getting around the thermostat or through the thermostat. There's no other way. I've tried absolutely everything. I did cardboard in front of the radiator and drove it home from work. I pinched off the heater hoses thinking maybe that was enough of a bypass to cool it off. That made no difference. Excuse me. Ultimately, I decided it has to be around or through the thermostat. So, did a little digging. This is the original housing that was on this engine. And if you notice, it's not flat. So I figured that has to be it. It's getting around the edges. So I ended up swapping for a new one I had on the shelf. It's got holes for fittings or whatever in it, but that one's completely flat. Put that Robert Shaw thermostat back in. And still would not get over 160 degrees. I've been beating my head against the wall. So what I did the other day when the whole fire thing happened is took everything apart, had the thermostat sitting in the intake, and was holding it down as hard as I could, and added coolant or water to the radiator. And there was no coolant coming around this, but it was coming through it, even though this has no bypass holes. So this expensive high flow thermostat is not sealing. This one's not sealing. This one doesn't close after it's warmed up. So I don't know why I have such bad luck with thermostats. It's starting to make me frustrated. So I went back on the internet, Googling stuff, and there was more than a couple people, honestly, that said, forget all the aftermarket ones. Don't mess with it. Every time I've had one, I have a problem. Stick with a GM factory one. So we're going to try a GM factory one. Part number 125143334. This is a GM 195 degree thermostat. We're going to try it, and hopefully all my problems are gone. I'm confident now. Excuse me. I'm confident now that obviously the housing is not warped anymore. With that housing on there, there's no rocking back and forth on that intake, so I don't think the intake surface is warped. I'm confident that as long as we get this one to seal, hopefully it should work, if that makes sense. There is a good possibility both of these were installed with that warped housing, and maybe the way it was pushing on it damaged the bodies of them. I don't know. It's hard to say. But we're going to try this and see what happens. So throw this in, bolt it back down, dump some coolant in it. Let's get this thing warming up and see if we can actually get this stupid thing to temperature. That even seems to fit in there better. Likewise, I also have this rubber, I think it's made by Mr. Gasket, but it's got a rubber seal. Ultimately went with this because it's reusable, and I've been in and out of this thing so many times. I'm going to use that, the new housing, and bolt this thing down. I'm also going to hand tighten these, which potentially could have been the problem and the reason the other one warped. You know, you think, hey, it's coolant, you want it good and tight. I believe, I looked it up, the iron manifold calls for 30 foot-pounds. Aluminum intake manifold is only 15 to 20. So it really doesn't take much. Something along those lines. There. Mother tip. There we go. I don't know why they decided on this carburetor to have the fuel inlet on the opposite side. Doesn't really make any sense to me. All the other ones seem to be on the driver or passenger side rather. But it is what it is. Really need to get a fitting that is 90 so it would come this way maybe, but such a stupid thing that I did. Again, every other time I did just like this and just kind of worked around it. For whatever reason, that time I decided to take it off and it bit me. Still got a lot of cleaning up to do. Fire retardant everywhere. All right. Spill half the coolant because why not? Okay. All right, let's fire this thing up, see if we can get it to temp, see what happens. Just because, let's double check the fuel line, even though I didn't touch it. Yeah, it's tight. All right, here we go. Let that warm up for a few minutes, see what happens. Okay, I've been sitting here running this thing about 1500 RPMs for a few minutes, getting it warmed up. We are warming up to temperature. Let's see what it does. Hopefully this won't take too long. Why did it go back down? Well, it's a couple days later. I wanted to drive this back and forth to work a couple days to confirm. And yeah, it's still doing it. 150 to 160 degrees, no matter what. I don't understand why. I've done a little bit of experimenting. The coolant flow goes through the from the radiator to the water pump, goes through the engine block, up through the cylinder heads, into the coolant crossover at the front of the intake to the back of the thermostat. Now, the thermostat should allow the engine to warm up to its temperature, and then it opens and allows the flow into the radiator and then completes that cycle. If I were to sit in here with the coolant system all filled up and everything good to go, and hold the engine RPM at 1500 or 2000 RPMs, it'll stay 150 to 160 degrees, no matter what. So I tried something, and it's off right now, but if I pinch off the upper radiator hose completely, and then hold the RPM up, the temperature will rise. Virtually creating our own thermostat, basically. So for whatever reason, coolant is getting through or around our thermostat, which doesn't make sense because this is thermostat number 3 or 4 or whatever it's been. I find it very hard to believe that every thermostat I've gotten has been bad, but something's going on and I don't know what it is. You might be thinking, well, so what, right? I'd rather my engine run cold than warm, but yes, but it's actually also bad for your engine to run cold for a couple different reasons. For one, byproduct of combustion is water. So that's why you see water come out of your exhaust pipe. On one side of the piston, you have your combustion chamber. And again, that combustion byproduct is water. The other side of your piston is your crankcase, where your oil is. Your piston rings are not a perfect seal. So some of that moisture ends up into the oil. Engine at operating temperature, it doesn't matter. The oil's hot enough that that water will evaporate and go out through your PCV system, or if you have vented valve covers, they'll come out the vented valve covers, which is why you see steam coming out of the valve cover vents if you just have vents. That's actually normal. If that process isn't happening, you end up with, over time, you could end up with sludgy oil, sludge buildup. Obviously, oil in the water is going to change the consistency or how the oil works, and it's not going to do its job very well. And you end up with premature engine wear. And none of those things we want, right? The flip side of that is efficiency. The thermostat's job is to keep the engine at an operating temperature. In this case, we want it to be 195. I believe before 1987, small block Chevys at least, generally used a 180 degree thermostat. In 1987, they went to a 195 because manufacturers realized that the engine actually is more efficient at higher temperatures. A lot of our new cars, new makes, are actually operate between 205 and 210 degrees, and they'll actually set codes for under 200 degrees. So, all that to say, something is preventing our cooling system from operating how it should. So I want to do a little experiment. We've drained some coolant. If you turn this way, we drained some coolant out of the system. I have the upper radiator hose off, and I don't know if I can show this very well, but with the upper radiator hose off, I can see the top of the thermostat. I'm going to have her pour water in the radiator, and I'm going to see if it just flows out and see what happens. See if I can see if we solve a problem with our sealing surface, or if coolant's just coming through the thermostat, or what's happening.
Are you using a flashlight or the scope?
Flashlight. Scope could work too, but I don't know if it's charged.
You want to try and turn it on?
Yeah, let's try it. I don't know if this camera will show that screen very well, but we'll give that a try. It might be easier to see. For a little backstory, I've been all over this thing and I've tried absolutely everything. Cardboard in front of the radiator, pinched off the heater hoses. This radiator was new. Before we did the engine in this thing, I put a radiator in it because it was leaking. And at that time I did the thermostat, and it's, I think around that time is when all this started. When we did the engine, it got a new water pump. During my testing stuff, I know the gauge is reading. I don't know that it's 100% accurate, but I know that it is reading. And as well as it's got a new fan clutch on it. So everything here should be operating except for our thermostat, apparently.
It's got 2 bars. Should be enough.
See what happens. Question is, will this show up on camera? Yeah, it should. All right, so I got a borescope in the thermostat housing. Let's see what happens. She's going to add some water.
Gonna make a mess.
She's going to make a mess, but she's going to add some water. And we have a funnel, but... you can hear air coming out somewhere. Yep, there it goes. Okay, stop there. So there's definitely water coming through the thermostat. Which I'm guessing it has a bleed hole, but is that enough? Is that enough flow? Let's try something. You want to jump in it?
Sure.
You're going to start it. All right. Make sure it's out of gear. Don't treat me like you treated the garage door. Note the new windshield.
I didn't try to burn it down.
True. All right. Let's see if I can get an angle here. Do it. That's definitely flow. Coming up. I mean, that's definitely coolant flowing. Of course, there was no way to tell if it was coming all through that vent hole. I imagine it has a vent hole. I don't know where. For instance, I don't know if you can see it on... where's the other one? For instance, this is that Robert Shaw. I don't know how well this shows up. Right there by my finger, there's a little spot for a vent to allow air to bleed out when you're actually adding coolant. This is actually a new one from Summit. We told them we had a problem with that one. They sent us a new one. Why don't we try swapping this one out real quick and see if it does the same thing?
Sure. Was it half inch?
9/16. Okay. Experiment number 2 with the replacement Robert Shaw thermostat. Go ahead. Again, she's adding water to the radiator. It's coming through, but it's just barely. It was flowing through the other one. Okay, stop there. Let's start it again. Whoa, losing stuff. There is my flashlight. All right. You can see it just barely bubbling in there. Nothing like the other one was doing, though. All right, go ahead. Little throttle, maybe. Also flowing. All right, shut it off. Let me teach you a little something about how bolts work. So having this off and on, the other thermostat housing, remember I said it had a little bit of warp to it? So I've been tightening it by hand. So if you look down here, I went to tighten this bolt by hand, and it got tight. When I went to move to this bolt, this thermostat housing moved. So I thought, well, that's weird. Try to tighten it a little bit more. It didn't tighten anymore. It turns out this bolt was going in slightly at an angle. So I think this side of the thermostat was never getting tight. No matter how many times I had it off and on, it threaded in just perfectly fine, but it was at a slight angle. So I just ran a tap through it. And if you look in here, she just added more water to it off camera. There is 0 water coming through this thermostat. It started pouring out the upper radiator hose. So I may have been chasing my tail for over a month now because of some messed up threads in the intake.
It's only like 5 or 6 thermostats. It's fine.
My brain hurts. Let's put this hose back on and warm it up, see what it does.
All right, I'll watch it.
Oh man, this is so strange.
At least it was only like 5 or 6 thermostats, a housing, and a fan clutch.
Fan clutch.
And 18 gallons of coolant.
Yeah. Well, and a radiator. So originally, we replaced this radiator. Well, so I'm sure the original, whichever one it was, I don't remember.
That's a Doco.
The original one, the Summit or Stand or whatever it was, we replaced this radiator and put a thermostat in it at the same time. And that's when I noticed all the problems and that it would get up to 195 and then drop down and then just stay down. So I'm sure that that thermostat was bad. I didn't notice that it was getting to operating temperature the first time. So we put a radiator in this, actually like a bigger one. That's why the shrouds cut back. It had a bigger radiator in it, and decided that that was probably too big because it wasn't running at operating temperature before I thought about how thermostats work and how that shouldn't really matter. So we put a radiator in it originally, and then of course several thermostats now after we did the engine deal, and it turns out the intake we put on this engine had a messed up bolt hole. Maybe this is finally fixed.
I guess we'll find out momentarily.
Yep.
After we put more water in it again.
Yeah, we're gonna shut the camera off. Top this thing off. We gotta open the door. Probably need to mop up the floor, the giant mess that we made, and get back with your feed. So it's a little bit later. We did make an improvement. That sun's gonna be an issue. Made an improvement with that particular setup. It was, maybe that's better. Getting up to temperature and then swinging back down and then back up to temperature and swinging back down. And it was swinging quite a lot. I think, from my understanding, it needs a slight vent in it. Needs a little bit of flow to make the coolant temp and the entire system more consistent. So ultimately I went back to the AC Delco one, and hopefully with the thermostat housing tightening correctly, it should be better now. It's got a GM part in it, so it should be fine. It is quite a bit more consistent and warmer. Before, you'd have nothing but cold air from the fan, and now it's got warm air, obviously. The upper radiator hose I can barely touch, where before I could hold it without an issue. Driver's side of the radiator was hot before, passenger side is cool. Now it's fairly consistent, or more consistent. Anyway, I think it's fixed. Until I actually drive it down the road, I'm not gonna know 100%, but I'm pretty sure it's fixed. So, probably a shorter video. I debated on whether or not to make this video at all, as far as the whole fire thing and what I did. Not that I'm ashamed of it, things happen, but ultimately I decided to, and then I just kind of attacked the thermostat stuff onto the end. Basically as a reminder, things happen very, very quickly. Luckily, I was in a situation where fire extinguisher was close by. People jumped too, but imagine in this scenario, let's say you're driving down the road and the thermostat's stuck closed, or you're overheating and you pull into an auto parts store and decide that the thermostat's stuck closed. So you're swapping out a thermostat, and that happens in the parking lot. By the time you run inside and get somebody, they get the fire extinguisher, come running back out. It's probably too late. Like I said, my whole thing happened quickly. I was very fortunate. And it doesn't just have to be fire either. I guess it's a reminder to double check your work and look everything out over real quick. If you've been working on your rig, before you hit the key, double check. Maybe it's a wrench you left on the fan shroud and it falls, hits the fan, ends up through the radiator, or tied up in a belt or whatever. So I think we get a little complacent when we're working on things, and like I said, I figured I'd just post this up there because, again, I'm not ashamed of it. It happens. And just a reminder that be careful. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. Again, huge shout out to the people at work that came to aid, and the person that took the video, because then I could share it with you guys, and I have a reminder on my phone all the time. Excuse me, sorry about that. I do have fire extinguisher in that corner of the shop, as well as that corner of the shop, and they're going to get upgraded to the bigger ones. These are just the smaller ones, so I'm going to upgrade them because probably a good idea. Yeah, so hopefully you found this interesting. Hopefully you learned something, like what not to do. The cooling system thing has been kind of a plague. I could have left that out of this completely. But I like to share what I'm working on. That's what the whole point is, right? So like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff if you would. Share it with your friends, all that fun stuff. Helps a lot.
Thanks for hanging out.
Thanks for hanging out. We appreciate you guys very much. Don't light your vehicles on fire. Don't run them through the garage door, none of that stuff. Be careful. Look over your work before you fire it up, all that good stuff. And we'll see you guys next time.